So hello, everybody, and welcome to Miracle Monday.
Should I get
And
my book?
it's up to you, honey.
Can you hand me my book? Thank you.
And today, I thought we would just touch on trust. We're going to go through the 6 stages of the development of trust. It's a very short section. It's like a page and a half, almost 2 pages. But it's been such an important piece for me, and I know others as well, when you can really delve into it and just, I thought what we could do was just read through it slowly and maybe we can talk about it, discuss it. So as we're going through it slowly, if anybody has any questions or comments, just raise your hand electronically. I'm going to put everybody on mute, but I'm going to give everybody the capacity to go ahead and mute or unmute themselves. So feel free to do that. Just like you say, put your hand up either, physically or electronically, whatever. So it's on page 9 of the manual for teachers for anybody that wants to read along. Don't feel that you have to read along, entirely up to yourself. So now I'm going to start. I'm going to start the introduction. So the introduction is on page 9, and we're just going to start with trust, and then maybe Lloyd or whatever, we will just figure it out as we go along. But here we go. Trust. This is the foundation on which their ability to fulfill their function rests. And we're talking about God's teachers, which we all are. Perception is the result of learning. In fact, perception is learning, because cause and effect are never separated. The teachers of God have trust in the world, because they have learned it is not governed by the laws the world made up. It is governed by a power that is in them, but not of them. It is this power that keeps all things safe. It is through this power that the teachers of God look on a forgiven world. And this particular sentence for me, really, I found it very good. And I committed it to memory because I felt that it was very important. And that's sentence number 4, which I'll just read again. Teachers of God have trust in the world because they have learned that it is not governed by the laws the world made up, which really is another way of saying that Jesus is in charge of time and space, and that I'm under no laws but God's. So this to me really is about going to the miracle, like really about really reaching the miracle in the mind. This is how you learn that that we can trust the world because it is not governed by the laws that it made up. Miracle is beyond the laws of the world. When this power has once been experienced, it is impossible to trust one's own petty strength again.
And let's just stop there for a second because
Yeah.
that is, what I was saying, when the Holy Spirit earns your trust,
Right.
is that what happens is you get to experience some of this power.
Right.
Mhm.
Who would attempt to fly with the tiny wings of a sparrow when the mighty power of an eagle has been given him? And who would place his faith in the shabby offerings of the ego when the gifts of God are laid before him? What is it that includes them to make the shift? Or what is it that induces them to make the shift? Okay, so the development of trust. We're going to shift right into this now, the 6 stages of the development of trust. Who would like to read the first stage? You like to?
I could do it, yeah.
Okay, first paragraph. Yep.
First, they must go through what might be called a period of undoing. Now, this need not be painful, but it usually is experienced. It seems as if all things are being taken away, and it is rarely understood initially that their lack of value is merely being recognized. How can lack of value be perceived unless the perceiver is in a position where he must see things in a different light? He is not yet at a point at which he can make the shift entirely internally. And so the plan will sometimes call for changes in what seems to be external circumstances. These changes are always helpful. When the teacher of God has learned that much, he goes on to the second stage.
You know, this is a really important stage, of course, and it usually is very painful. And I mean, I know I went through this myself. I see people that are going through it now, when they're going through a stage that everything seems to be taken away from them. And many times I think when you're going through this stage, you feel like a victim. You just feel like a victim because you feel like there's a lot of things happening to you beyond your control. But really, what's really happening here is that we are learning to separate the valuable from the valueless. But we don't yet really even understand what that means. But this, the way I look at this is that when this begins to happen to you, it's because we've made a decision deep in the mind that that we want it to happen. We do want to learn to trust in the laws that are beyond this world. And we do want to learn to forgive the world because we understand that it is not governed by the laws that it made up. These are all things that the mind has decided that it wants to do. It wants to learn to trust. And I just want to share something that happened to me. Like when I met Lloyd, so this is what, about 4 years ago, over 4 years ago now. I didn't really realize it, but really what I had entered into was a new um, development of trust. This was when these stages were going along. I was about to hit stage number 5, which we're going to get to here shortly. Of course, I didn't know that at that time, but I remember meeting someone at the airport when I was flying from Toronto to Newfoundland. And this lady said to me, she said, most people don't have a clue what trust really means. We think we know what the development of trust means, but we have no idea. We just don't know what it means. So I think about that lady's conversation. That was meant for me because I was about to hit, you know, the brick wall of the 5th stage. Okay, so who wants to read stage number 2? Or does anybody want to talk about, oh, David? Go ahead and unmute yourself, David.
Right. Yeah, this is for me. This first paragraph is really where this trust really comes in because trusting in the Holy Spirit to show us a different perception of what we're actually seeing and what we're putting value in is really, to me, what that trust. Because like you said with that woman in the airport, talking about trust and we tend to look at trust in the light of the world that we think we live in, and we think it's trusting on the individuals and so forth, but it really has nothing to do with that at all.
Right.
That's all I had to say about that.
That's
Yeah,
really
no,
good.
that's,
That's really good. And David, do you feel like you're going through that now, or have you sort of gone through it? Like, where do you feel you are in relation to? But before you answer that question, David, I just want to say that I think these stages we visit all of these stages, back and forth, if you know what I mean. Because I can read stage number 1 now, and you can still relate to it, even though I might be in stage 5. Now, these are just words, right? Like, when I say I'm in stage 5, but what I'm saying is that it still means something to me. Like I can go deeper into trust by reading stage 1.
Yes, I agree. I remember when I first read this many years ago, I felt that same way. I said, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm kind of in stage 1, and I'm a little bit in stage 2, and I'm in stage 3." And say, "Well, I'm a little bit in that too," but I go back and forth. And yeah, I agree. We're kind of in all the stages all at once. We're almost like we're in different dimensions all at once. But that first stage is a tough one to get through to the point. I can't. I'm going through it now. I can't say that I'm already through it. I'd like to be, but
Yeah.
we're at least speaking for myself, I'm a very stubborn person. That ego is stubborn, and to finally give my trust totally over to the Holy Spirit and to God is not an easy thing to do, I find.
I'm fine. I can relate.
it's not easy for
No,
any of us.
no.
And that
Yeah.
can take a number of years.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, in my own journey, I can tell you it took me probably 25 years
Yeah.
to really get to that, 100%.
Yeah.
And it was back and forth, back and forth. And, it comes in increments. And it just, but what I found, David, is that as if the more that you trust, the more, let's say, spiritual experiences you'll get along the road.
Yeah,
Because
I
it's
agree.
gaining trust and the Holy Spirit's working with you. And that's how it works for all of us. It's just, I mean, we can't just stop in the middle of what we think is an earthly life and trust completely in something we can't
Right.
see.
That's why it's
Right.
called development.
Exactly.
That's called development of trust.
Yeah.
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 I just
Yeah,
want
we're
to,
so used to being able to just see everything, and everything is five senses, we just it's hard to move away from that and have trust in something that isn't tangible.
I
very,
know.
very
And
good
of course, the
point.
five senses are totally lying to us.
Well, because we're
Yeah,
trusting the
absolutely.
world.
Yeah.
And you know what I think? Being identified with the body, we want to trust in the world. Like we're
Yeah.
committed to trusting in the world. That's why the ego looks to the world, right? Looks to the laws of the world in order to be saved. It looks to, form. And it continues to
Yeah.
do, like I think it was Martin Patet who mentioned one time, the ego is going to look for every solution it can in the world. It's going to exhaust every potential,
It seduces
right?
us. Let's
Yeah,
put it
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that's all right.
way. Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not really bad. It's just about, like you say, the cultivation of trust. Two acronyms that are helpful because the word trust is kind of difficult to define, but there's two acronyms for trust. Number one, to rely upon spirit totally. And then the second one is um, to rise up and stop your thoughts.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks, David.
You're welcome.
Tess?
Yes, I wanted to add something in the first trust thing. Gaining trust, as for me, gaining trust as in the script is written, we mentally look at past thoughts, images. That is for me to trust that completely and not thinking that Tess can do anything here in this world, but that the script is written. That
Right.
is for me to trust fully, to really fully trust. Yeah.
And do you think trust is another word for accept?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very beautiful. It's very peaceful, isn't it?
Yeah.
For me, I think the experience for me is showing me that it's about, allowing the miracle. For me, it's like, you ask, what do I want? Well, I want peace, yet, yes, it comes by way of the miracle. Like, that's all I want is the miracle, which is the healing of the mind.
But we resist it.
Well, absolutely,
Yeah.
because because like for me, we're going through some health issues. It feels fearful and threatening, and it's difficult to realize the miracle when you're in fear. It's just as simple as that, right? So it's been a new learning curve, in other words. It's a huge learning curve, which I have to trust.
And we just simply
Yeah.
have to keep going back to nothing real can be threatened, right?
Right.
And may I say one thing? There is a number 6, sentence number 6. It says, and so the plan will sometimes call for changes in what seem to be external circumstances.
Right.
Yeah.
And these changes are always helpful. And I can't help myself, but I believe that the passing of Jacques is such a change in the external circumstances for me to gain trust.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
was the first thing that came up.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Okay.
100%. And I mean, isn't it wonderful to be able to see it like that? Or to accept it as that?
Yeah, it becomes almost festive then, in a way. It sounds
Yeah,
stupid.
that's like me. Like, with what I've been going through, I have to understand that all things, past, present, and to come, are happening for the good. All things are working out for the good except for the ego's judgment. All these coarse sayings now are coming alive. They're not just words, to recite anymore. They're coming alive. And I was told not that long ago from the Holy Spirit that the two main themes right now are trust and I don't know. To step into the unknown, in other words, like I don't know. Yeah, okay, so paragraph or the second stage this is. Now I'll go ahead and read this and maybe someone else then can read number 3. So this is the second stage of the development of trust. Next, the teacher of God must go through a period of sorting out. This is always somewhat difficult because having learned that the changes in this life are always helpful, he must now decide all things on the basis of whether they increase the helpfulness or hamper it. He will find that many, if not most of the things he valued before, will merely hinder his ability to transfer what he has learned to new situations as they arise. Because he has valued what is really valueless, he will not generalize the lesson for fear of loss and sacrifice. It takes great learning to understand that all things, events, encounters, and circumstances are helpful. It is only to the extent to which they are helpful that any degree of reality should be accorded them in this world of illusion. The word value can apply to nothing else. So I think, the highlight here is to understand that we don't really know what's valuable. We don't really know the difference between what's valuable and what's valueless. At this stage, what we think is valuable is actually valueless, and vice versa.
Yes, Linda.
For me, this is such a good lesson is that it takes great learning to understand that all things, events, encounters, and circumstances are helpful. Everything.
Right.
And to keep that in my mind,
Right.
so that I can accept and allow the miracle.
That's very good. In the midst of it.
In the midst of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to be rooted in that. To anchor in that.
Yeah. Because the ego is relentless, right? The ego will say, yeah, but now I'm going to give you, like, let's put this thought in your mind, which is not even really your thought, but let's put this thought in your mind, to show you that, no, this is, you can't really experience the miracle in this thought. But that's
Yes.
not the truth, right?
And the good point I think you mentioned too, to remember, it's not mine. The thinking, the thoughts of, that's not mine. It's not, and not to get attached to and engaged in that, the thinking and the thoughts that we think are ours and that we need to do something about it.
Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah, to be able to pause and step back and just say to just to be open to receive.
Absolutely.
What Spirit is revealing to me.
Right.
Yep.
That's huge.
Huge.
Everything.
Yeah. Thank you.
We really have to understand what the Course means when it says we need do nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, when I read that, I didn't understand what that meant.
Me either. Active all my life, a doer all my life until recent. So, but yeah.
It's just, we have to simply observe the ego.
Observe.
Without judgment.
Yes.
That's the important part about becoming the observer, is that if we judge it, then we're making it real.
Yeah.
So we just have to observe it, no matter what it seems to be doing, without judgment, and we don't listen to it. But that again takes, you and I know that takes a lot of practice.
It's vigilance. We only for God and His kingdom.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, who would like to read the third stage, which is paragraph 5?
Paragraph 5.
Anybody here like to read it?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay. The third stage through which the teachers of God must go can be called a period of relinquishment. If this is interpreted as giving up the desirable it will engender enormous conflict. Few teachers of God escape this distress entirely. There is, however, no point in sorting out the valuable from the valueless unless the next obvious step is taken. Therefore, the period of overlap is apt to be one in which the teacher of God feels called upon to sacrifice his own best interests on behalf of truth. It's not realized as yet how woefully impossible such a demand would be. He can learn this only as he actually does give up the valueless. Through this, he learns that where he anticipated grief, he finds a happy lightheartedness instead. Where he thought something was asked of him, he finds a gift bestowed on him.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, the Spirit said to me one time about this, which really sums up this whole paragraph in one sentence. It said, "You're not asked to sacrifice anything, but to receive everything."
Hmm.
So we turn the idea of sacrifice, which is loss, into receiving the gift of God, which is the miracle. Because the ego is the idea of sacrifice, loss, suffering. Yeah.
And as we go along, we're gonna, it's gonna talk about more about the valueless.
Yeah, the valuable from the valueless, which, by the way, we are not capable as bodies in this world, personalities. We're not capable of separating the valuable from the valueless as bodies. We're just not capable of doing that, and that's why we need help. So would anyone else, so who would like to read the next one? Paragraph 6, period of settling down, which is the 4th stage. Or does anybody have anything else they want to say about the 3rd stage?
Yes, I have a question. Is it so that giving up, Jesus is referring to not giving up things in the form, but giving up judgment?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Well,
okay.
the valuable and the valueless. The valuable is anything that is eternal, and the valueless is anything that is not eternal.
Yeah.
That's the way of, separating the valueless from the valuable. Yeah,
So it's really, gets down to the nitty gritty where eventually you realize there's nothing in the world that has any value.
right. Because there is no world.
Yeah. That's where we understand, we give everything the meaning it has, right?
And I think as we go through our training and we know in our mind when blockages come up, we know if it's valuable or valueless, right? We have that, we have discernment. It's like, I'm willing to let this go now because it's of no value. It just has no value in my mind. I don't value this anymore. It's become meaningless for me. And therefore, I'm very willing to give it up. We're really letting go of our specialness through this.
And again, I've said this many times, but what I found in my own journey was that rather than the Holy Spirit taking things away from me, yes, I did give up some things. It seemed like I didn't want to give them up, but it was shown to me it was the best route. But what I found was that the Holy Spirit won't give you anything that will cause what's the word
Like
I'm
a
gonna
delay.
a delay.
Yeah.
That's the word I'm looking for. Nothing will be given you that will delay your journey.
Right.
Everything will be given to you that you need. And sometimes we don't know what that is. In fact, most of the time we don't know what that is. But you won't get anything that will delay your journey.
There's this, and this is where trust comes in,
And
right?
I've had that happen numerous times and some pretty big issues. One was a job I was offered that I thought was a dream job that I really wanted. And I mean, the lady that was going to hire me was all a done deal. But I won't go into all the details, but it never transpired. And when I look back now, I'm so glad because it definitely would have slowed my journey down.
Right. It's funny how that works,
Oh,
isn't
yeah.
it? Like sometimes, when you're going through life and you think, God, I should really be doing this, I should really be doing that, but you're not really inspired to do it, but maybe part of your mind or your rational mind will think, oh, I really should be pursuing this, but you kind of look back and you think that wouldn't have been what was appropriate for me. That would have slowed me down. And so therefore, that's why I was never inspired, to do it.
Even, there was a point where I took up Reiki. And I got to the stage where I was gonna do my final Reiki. And it never happened. And I was really into it. And I didn't realize till later that um the reason that happened was it would have maybe hung me up for a while on thinking I could heal bodies. Because I didn't understand that only the mind needs healing at that point. That doesn't mean you can't do Reiki. It just means that a good Reiki person will know that it has nothing to do with healing a body. It's what's going on in the mind of the
Yeah.
practitioner.
Yeah, anything
And you
can be
can,
used.
anything can be
Yeah.
used by Holy
Yeah.
Spirit. But again, it's the purpose behind it. And at
Very
that
good.
time, I wasn't, I'm thinking, wow, I'm a great freaking healer. People would tell me, you have energy come out of your hands. I can feel it. And of course, I thought, wow, that's fantastic. But, eventually I got to realize that I wasn't supposed to do this. And I never did finish the third stage. Yeah.
Tess?
Yes, and Lloyd, I wanted to ask you, when did you see it that it was for the good that you didn't get that job?
It was, a few months later, actually down the road, because what happened was I was supposed to get this job in this pretty famous bookstore in a place in Pickering, Ontario here. It was a very well-known bookstore, but it was all New Age. And I was really into the New Age sector at that time. I mean, I'd read literally hundreds of New Age books, and that was, part of my journey. But if I'd have got involved in that store, I would have been caught in the New Age sector, like staying with it,
Bogged down. kind of
bogged
in it.
down with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And that came to my mind a few weeks later, and I understood why I didn't get the job, because I was a little ticked, right? But I didn't understand it completely. I guess because, I did get some inspired thought. And why didn't I get this job? And it was the fact that it would have definitely slowed me down. And it might have slowed me down for, who knows? I'm just guessing. But let's say it slowed me down for 5 years or something like that. Because I would have been stuck in that body, mind, spirit
Yeah.
thing. That's, New Age is all about balancing body, mind, spirit.
And this is not a judgment against New Age because
No,
this is
no,
just
no.
for your
It
curriculum.
was for my
right? Yeah.
curriculum. And I
Yeah,
mean,
and you had to get ready for Stephanie.
Absolutely. And that takes a lot more than a bookstore.
Yeah,
but
that was the speed. That was
kinda
the
like
speed up, Lloyd.
And Tess, I had to get ready for Lloyd too.
Yeah.
No, I just want to share. And then when we were traveling across the sea, coming here with my car, which was loaded right down to the gunnels, I heard, you know what I heard in my mind? I heard, now you're going to fly with the wings of an eagle rather
Oh.
than the wings of a sparrow.
Oh.
Because, in other words, I was really this was like an accelerated path of trust.
Yeah.
Because that's what relationships are, well,
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
we're all going through, not just relationships, because life is a relationship. We're all in relationship to the Holy Spirit.
yeah.
There's only one real relationship, as we know.
Well,
right?
we're all learning and teaching one another 24/7,
Right.
And Stephanie was the catalyst that I needed to go from trusting, let's say 98% to tipping it over, the scales to 100%. And that was one of the gifts that she gave me for sure. And
And I'm
it did
still learning.
change my life. Like when I made that decision, okay, I'm going for it. Here it is, 100%. I mean, I did have things happen that showed me I made the right decision, kind of thing.
I just want to say.
Not easy, not easy.
It's never easy. The whole thing is not easy,
Yeah.
but I just want to say too, I don't know why this is coming to me, but I've often had to remind myself to never feel bad about where we think we are. Because we don't really know, number one, really where we are. The course even says that sometimes, your greatest advances are really in actuality retreats and vice versa.
Mm.
So we don't really know where we are. So it's never to feel bad for where we think we are, or if we're going through a particularly, challenging time and we haven't had a positive thought in 2 weeks. Well, that doesn't mean we're doing bad. It just
No.
doesn't. So I wanted to mention that.
Yeah.
So we're at the, I think somebody just read stage 4. Am I correct in that?
We're
No, I
on-
think we're
we're on the
starting.
6.
Yeah, we're starting paragraph 6, which is stage number 4, which is I call this the respite before the shit hits the fan stage. All right, who would like to?
Go ahead.
Who would like to? Okay,
You want to
go.
read that, Myra?
Or is it Sarah?
Sure.
Myra.
Well, Sarah has a question, I think.
Oh, Sarah has a question? Okay.
Or maybe she wants to read. I don't know.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on the stage we just were talking about. For me, I see it that it's kind of a wrestling match I'm going through between my interests as an ego, what I think will make me happy, what I want in the world, what I value. And now I'm learning the course, and Holy Spirit is saying, look over here, this isn't really what you value. You really want the peace of God. And I say, yeah, I do want the peace of God, but I also want what I want, which I think brings me peace. I think that those things that I want bring me peace. I believe that. Things have to be a certain way in the world for me to be happy. And now he's saying, no, you don't know your best interests. Listen to me. This is where you'll find the peace. And I say, yeah, but giving up control is what you're asking me to do, is make me vulnerable. I don't want to do that. So I see this stage as a real wrestling match. And it continues throughout, but there are times when it's very, very intense, because this conflict in the mind is between two thought systems, and the conflict gets exacerbated to where it's you kind of go, okay, I give up.
Right.
My way is not working. But somebody mentions stubbornness, and the stubborn character that I am finds it my life has worked for me in the world. So the more that my life works for me in the world, the harder it is to believe that, that giving all that stuff up is really where my real happiness lies. And so, yeah, I just see this as kind of that conflict and wrestling match until you kind of give up and say, okay, Holy Spirit, I give up. And I think that giving up happens more and more often as we go along. Just, I give. I'm done. I'm done with my way because I'm still not happy.
Really good.
That's
You know,
that's
you really,
everybody's journey,
yeah,
Sarah.
and you just really did a very good summary of that particular stage.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it is.
You do have to surrender, but we're stubborn creatures.
And I like what you said about, like, no matter what stage you're in, we're still going through this,
Yeah.
right? We still go through that wrestling match, because resistance is really the whole journey. It's being faced with our resistance. And we don't even know how much resistance we have until we begin to touch it, because it lays dormant in the mind. That's why we have to trust the journey, and that this journey that we're on, the 6-stage journey that we're on.
And it's just, when we say that it's things in the world that make us happy, I mean, we get to really understand eventually that that is simply not true.
Right.
Because, it's like, for instance, let's say we get a new car and we're really happy about it. But after 6 months, it's an old car.
Yeah.
And it's, no longer really giving us that peak happiness that we thought we had when we purchased that new car. And it's the same for everything. Doesn't matter what it is. That's because this world is duality. It's up and down. We're happy one minute, and next minute we're sad. And all kinds of, different emotions in between that too. So nothing in this world can really truly make us happy 100% of the
Yeah.
time.
And remember that
Yeah.
life only appears to be working.
Yeah.
And life only appears to be working. There is no life outside of heaven.
Yeah.
And if there is no world, then there is no life. You know, it only appears that way.
I mean, the greatest joy, I think, for me, and I don't mean that this happened right at the start, because for sure it didn't. But eventually, the greatest joy for me was to really understand that God had nothing to do with this shit show. Literally, it's like
Mm.
that brought the joy on, because, you know, we all think, God, did God create this? I mean, how could a God of love create all this pain and suffering? And eventually we get the answer that God has nothing to do with this. And, you know, we get it through an experience. I remember I had a fellow school bus driver. Her name was Heidi. She's passed away since now, but I talked to her once. We had a coffee in a restaurant, and I said to her, because we were discussing this about, you know, this world being made by God. And I said, Heidi, go home. And she used to meditate. And I'd say, really, get into a good meditation and just ask the universe, you know, did God make this world? And so a couple of days went by, and I met her again, and I said, Heidi, what did you do? Did you do, you know, that experiment that I asked you to do? And she said, yes, believe it or not, she said, I did. So I went into a deep meditation and asked that question. And the answer was, I didn't make it, you did. Which was the truth.
You know, Sarah, I'm thinking about something that David Hofmeister said once. He said, all the things you think you want, you don't want them. See, this is why we're not asked to give anything up.
Yeah.
We're only asked to receive everything that's already ours.
And again, what's happened to me is that, yeah, things were definitely taken away, but anything that I received through guidance, I always got the best. I never had to settle for less. That was the amazing part to me. That I got whatever I needed, it was the best of what I needed. And that was showing me definitely I was trusting in the right voice, kind of thing. So you do get what you need, and you know, it's not about settling for less.
And of course, I'm speaking of the joy in the mind,
Well, the
right?
joy in the
Of
mind too, but I
peace.
mean,
Yeah.
even the physical
Sure.
things, I mean, we need things while we think we're here. And whatever my needs were required in the moment, it wasn't that I had to settle for less. That's what I'm trying to say. Is that you're to be provided for in ways that you can't even imagine.
Well,
And
there goes trust again, isn't it?
it's about trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go to the period of settling down now, which is paragraph number 6.
Yeah,
Why wouldn't you want to read that?
yes, I will. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Now comes a period of settling down. This is a quiet time in which the teacher of God rests a while in a reasonable place. Now he consolidates his learning. That's an important word. Yeah. Now he begins to see the transfer value of what he has learned. We need that time. We need that time to let everything just sink in and to understand what we're doing. Those periods, sometimes you even put the book back in the shelf for about a year or so and just let it all sink in. Just let it have its time just to develop in your mind. I experience that in my way. Its potential is literally staggering, yes. And the teacher of God is now at the point in his progress at which he sees in it his whole way out. Give up what you do not want and keep what you do. How simple is the obvious, and how easy to do. The teacher of God needs this period of respite, yes. And he has not come as far as he thinks, That's also a big one. Never think that you got anywhere. You're anywhere. You're still traveling. We're always traveling. Oh, once you get into that, just one little foot into the mind, then you think, wow,
Right.
it's so huge. Holy Spirit, please show me the way, because wow, yeah. Yet when he is ready to go on, he goes with mighty companions beside him. Ah, it's so beautiful.
Because we need them. We
Yeah,
need
because we need, yes, definitely. There's nothing alone. Everything is connected together. It's impossible to do anything alone. So now he rests a while and gathers them. He gathers his mighty companions. And before going on with them, he will not go on from here alone. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it's all about. That respite, that time, consolidating, letting everything sink in. It's so much information that we're receiving from Jesus now, this whole course. It's really amazing. In my journey, well, if I think about the word trust, that how should I say that? In my journey, it was the rules for decision. The rules for decision started about 6 years ago. That was together with Kate Greaves when she started doing also the rules for decision.
Right.
And starting the rules for decision, you do everything wrong. And that's the best thing that could ever happen, because I was having this terrible time with the Holy Spirit, doing everything wrong and making all these mistakes. And it was the best time I ever had, because it finally turned into the foundation and the base of trust. As Jesus said, there is one who knows the way. There is one you can rely on now. There is one you can truly accept guidance from and teaching from. And that is the Holy Spirit. That is the voice that God has given you. And you can really trust this voice now. That is for me, trust, accepting, and doing the rules for decision really taught my mind how to accept guidance. And so much happened. It's too much to say just in a few minutes. But what you mentioned, Lloyd, also about I need do nothing, that finally happened a few years ago. A shift happened, and it was okay. Myra was no longer in the way.
Right.
Yeah.
It was okay.
Yeah.
And then the whole journey turned into be a very forgiving and peaceful and loving journey. So, and whatever happens, and many things did happen, whatever it was, I could just lay back and let it happen. Even some very intense sick moments when I thought, this is it. This is the last moment that I'm going to be here. The dream's just about over. I think the body can't handle this pain anymore. And I just lay down on the couch. And I said, Jesus, come and lay with me. You know, it's okay. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm totally going to give it over. Totally.
That's beautiful.
That's
And I
beautiful.
fell asleep. And when the body woke up, I thought, wow, I'm still here and the pain is gone.
Yeah.
And I've had that experience several times, that I thought, this is it. This is the last moment now. This body can't cope with this anymore. Yeah. And then that's really trusting. And so there's no fear of death anymore,
That's a
because
big,
really not getting in the way. So I love also the development of trust together with the rules for decision. And when you said, Stephanie, it's a theme going on now, trusting and not knowing. I really had to laugh when I got your message about trust, because last week, Sunday, in our Dutch group, we started reading The Development of Trust. Then in the Tuesday group, they said, hey, you started reading The Development of Trust. Can we do that too? Sure, we'll do that too. And then I have my Thursday group, many here are in the Happy Learners. But then yesterday, somebody from the Thursday group wrote me a message. Can we talk about trust next week? And then I got your email. Well, Monday we're going to talk about the development of trust. I thought, well, Stephanie, like you said, it's a theme. It seems to be very important now for all of us,
yeah.
that something in our minds now is ready to take a deeper step into trust.
You got it.
Yeah.
For all of us. And even those who may think they're struggling, they're not, but they think it. The ones who are not struggling, we can take them all with us now. And that's what I love about these. Is for me the development of trust,
Right.
taking it all together. Yeah, bringing everyone with us. Yeah.
Well, this came to me in the middle of the night, the acronym for trust, to rise up and stop thinking.
Yeah.
I just thought it was
Yeah.
great. And I
Yeah.
did it last night a couple of times. I woke up and I felt like some itchy because I've been going through itchy skin lately.
Yeah.
Intermittently, it comes and goes.
Yeah.
But last night I woke up and I started to feel a couple of itches, and I thought to rise up and stop thinking. So, so in other words, I'm applying what I'm hearing.
But Myra, you're so right about, when we think the body's caving in,
Right,
it's just to let it happen.
right,
To give up that fear of
Yeah.
whatever may happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a process we have to get to also, but that's the bottom line. Yeah, I mean, I've been there a couple times. Even this morning, I said to Stephanie before I left for work, I don't care what happens to this body anymore. I really don't. I'm
No,
honest about it.
he got his will all done now. I don't care either.
Yeah. Well, the first time that I experienced something like that was several years ago, and my experience was I was afraid of the fear, but after going through that and laying down and experiencing the fear, and then seeing that nothing happened, since that time,
Yeah.
I've never been afraid of the fear. I mean, this one's always doing its best to try to convince me that there's something to be afraid of, what's going to happen now, and all those climate things, and Holland is going to be drowned underwater, and everybody in Holland is going to die, and all these kinds of thoughts. And so this voice will always do its best to try to make me scared, but it can't scare me anymore because I'm no longer afraid of the fear. But if I buy into anything, very quickly now I can call back the projection and bring it to the Holy Spirit, and we look at it together,
Right,
and then I can smile.
right.
And
So
it's
I love the combination of the development of trust and the rules for decision. That works for me. That in my journey, that works for me.
well, they go together for sure.
And it's
Okay,
the
thank you.
experience that brings us through the cultivation of trust, right? It's our experiences that we're going through that brings us through that. I find for me, you mentioned about letting go of yourself, and that's been my journey. I've really, at the point, I was doing something one day and I thought, like, Stephanie is just disappearing. It's like, I don't care about Stephanie anymore. I'm just not, I don't care about that anymore. I don't want Stephanie to be there. Don't get me wrong. I love, all aspects of myself, but it's not important to me anymore. My specialness is becoming unraveled very, very exponentially. And I really experience that. And I know that that's what's happening. And I know that that's what the cultivation of trust really is. Letting go of
That's it. Like Jesus said, we don't deny the body, but like you said, that's it. The specialness falls away. And
Right.
so we don't deny the body, we take care of it as best as we can. It's becoming now a teaching instrument and a communication instrument. And that's why we can talk together now.
Right.
And that's great. Yeah.
The ego always goes for the juggler.
Yeah, you uses your
It
weakness
takes
or your
whatever
perceived.
our greatest fears are,
Right.
and that's what goes. Like, because we all have different kinds of fears going on, and the ego, knows what we're afraid of, right? And that's what usually tries to work on. It could be health, could be finances,
Yeah, it hits you where it hurts you the most.
not getting enough sex, whatever. It's just like all kinds of things go. That's where the ego goes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
The other thing I've realized too is that the fear of death is the fear of losing your individual identity. It's the fear of losing your individuality.
Yeah.
That's such a strong fear of death.
well, Ken Wapnick used to say that's the greatest fear was that there is no I in heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, David?
David, yeah.
Yeah, a couple of things have come. Listening to Myra, and you're how all this trust stuff is coming together for you right now, and I'm I'm looking at the world and what a beautiful lesson it is right now in the world, because you can't trust anything in the world at this point. You know, you don't know who's telling you the truth, who's lying to you. And I think that's so beautiful that it's being set up that way, because we're being led to look at the Holy Spirit as being the only thing we can trust. It's the only way out. And there's one, but what I originally wanted to say is one line that jumped out in this paragraph for me. It was he has not yet come as far as he thinks.
Right.
And the reason why that jumped out for me is because for me, I'm speaking only for myself now, this is a very dangerous point in this journey, because this is where spiritual arrogance can really come in. Where I mean, I got to a point where I believed I had reached that point, and I was there, and I knew everything, and I wasn't even beginning really at that point, but didn't realize that. And it took me a long time to get through that, where I thought I knew what was good for everybody else. And especially when I was doing the course, Ken Wapnick talked about a lot about that. People doing the course and thinking that all of a sudden they know what's good for everybody else, and
Right.
they
Yeah,
really
yeah.
start pushing it on everybody. So that was a good. I just wanted to comment on that. How that kind of it really applied to me at one point. That was a great lesson for me.
That's really
Very
good.
good. It's like in the courses, I know nothing.
Yes, right.
Admit that, it's the
Right.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
So
Oh, so
true.
true. See, this is why we need help.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Cultivating trust, because number one, we don't know what trust means, and number two, we don't know how to get there. We don't have a clue. The only
Yeah.
thing we really know is that the decision has been made, that we want this, because we're doing for one thing, because we're on the journey.
The Course in Miracles is the only teaching that I know of, and there's many, many other teachings, but it's the only one that I know of that gives you the way out. And I've studied a lot of different things, but the Course gave me a way out of the dream. And
Yeah.
it's not an easy out, but it's an out. We're all gonna, and I say we're gonna get there. That's not even true, because we actually all made it.
Yeah.
As the Course says, we're reviewing mentally which has gone by, and it says we're safe at home while dreaming of exile. So we're all back at home. There's nothing really to be concerned about.
So I'm going to read the next stage, which is the period of unsettling, which is the fifth stage of the development of trust, which can last a long time, by the way. And I'm right in the middle of this stage right now. But before I read it, I just want to say that I knew I was going to go through this. I was given premonitions years ago that I was going to go through this. Now, at the time that I received the premonitions, I didn't know that that's what that it was referring to. But looking back, I know now that I was receiving premonitions and that I was going to go through that my mind had made a decision to go through this in this lifetime review. So I just wanted to mention that. I had several different premonitions, which I can talk about later if you like. So the next stage is indeed a period of unsettling. Now must the teacher of God understand that he did not really know what was valuable and what was valueless. All that he really learned so far was that he did not want the valueless, and that he did want the valuable. Yet his own sorting out was meaningless in teaching him the difference. That's a pretty humbling statement from Jesus. His own sorting out was meaningless in teaching him the difference. The idea of sacrifice, so central to his own thought system, had made it impossible for him to judge. He thought he learned willingness, but now he sees that he does not know what the willingness is for. And now he must attain a state that may remain impossible to reach for a long, long time. He must learn to lay all judgment aside and ask only what he really wants in every circumstance. Were not each step in this direction so heavily reinforced, it would be hard indeed! Exclamation mark. So that's the paragraph which explains the fifth stage of the development of trust, which is also referred to as the eye of the needle, which is a very specific transition that each mind will eventually go through. And it's the purification of the mind, which you feel like your mind is going through the eye of a needle. And it can be very, very painful. So does anybody want to ask about that or talk about that or share about that? Kathy? I don't know if Kathy is
I
right
think
there.
Kathy's. Oh, she's
You
here.
wanted to talk about the premise.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yes. Tess, did you want to talk?
No, I wanted to ask you. You
Okay.
said
Oh,
you wanted to talk a little about the premonitions.
oh yeah, the premonition. Yeah, okay. So basically the premonition was that I got a dream. And you know how sometimes dreams are messages. They're just, you just know that they're not just, dreams of unconscious guilt and fear coming up, but they're actually messages. They're premonitions. They're showing you something. And anyway, but in this particular dream, I was hanging upside down on some kind of a vine between two cliffs. And I was upside down, shimmying, with my feet and my legs, just trying to get across. But the most important part of this was I was being shown the terror in my mind of not knowing if I was going to make it or not. And it was very profoundly intense. And I never ever let go of that feeling. Now, I mean, I forgot about it like as my life went on, but when I started to experience the fifth stage, which was 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, I remembered that premonition. I was also told I was going to meet someone that was going to be a light for me, and that was Lloyd. I was told that, and I knew it was Lloyd. Like as soon as I met him, I remembered that message that somebody was going to come and somebody was coming into my life to help me, like a lighthouse, because we need reinforcements. It says here, we're not each step in the direction so heavily reinforced, it will be hard indeed. And in the last part of the previous part, in the previous paragraph, which is number 4, it says, he goes with mighty companions beside him. And as I was really approaching, I'm going to call it the pre-fifth stage, I started to gather mighty companions that were going to help me, that were going through it with me. So it all played out. It just all played out so beautifully. And you don't need a lot of mighty companions, by the way. I mean, you only need a couple, but what we need will be given to us to help us. Because, until you start to really go through this period, you can't really understand what it's like and how intense it can be.
and of course, the mighty companions is all of us that are gathered here
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what happens, is your life opens up and we're with people all over the world now. And
Yeah.
yet they're not all over the world, they're in our mind.
Yeah.
But it's a joining. It's the mind's being healed. And we're all joining because we are that one mind. So the way I take it is that's how mighty companions showed up. It's just like you don't go on alone anymore because
Right.
we do. I know for myself, I spent a lot of time on my own before all of this started to come together, and all of a sudden all of these people started to come into my life that were all searching for the same truths
Right. With a shared purpose.
with a shared
And
purpose.
no more separate interests.
And that really made the journey, it's really joyous. Because we realize that, we're not alone and we're not insane.
Yeah. And we do need the reinforcements.
Yeah, we
Right? We
do.
need heavy reinforcements. It's just an incredible stage.
And,
and we
it's,
don't know how long it lasts. We know nothing.
Well,
This is
that's-
where those two themes come in. I don't know and trust.
and,
Right.
the line in there where it says, it can go on for a long, long time.
Right.
Again, we're on an individual curriculum. We don't really know how long it is. And I can tell you right now, for me, it's been 18 years. So when they say we don't know how long it's gonna be, you gotta be prepared.
I mean, Kathy's going through this right
And
now.
Kathy Jones, who's
and-
left us right now, but she's been going through it for a number of years.
And we came together, 3 years ago, Kathy and Lloyd and myself, we just, because it was time for us to come together so we could help each other. I mean, Kathy and I talk almost every day.
Mm.
Just comparing, not every single day, but, pretty much.
And not
Just
every,
because-
not every teacher even talks about this.
Right.
And the reason that they don't is because they haven't experienced it. It's that simple, because you can't really talk about this. It's like touching a hot stove. You know what it's like if you've done it, right? And it's when you start to go through these things, and these things that we were talking about, in a sense, they're not of this world. And it's a stage that every liberated being has to face at some point. It is going through the eye of the needle.
Yeah.
It's really getting rid of the world, so to speak, in a sense.
Absolutely. It
But
is, yeah.
it's we all get through it.
And we might not all experience it in this lifetime review, because we might, like, for example, many individuals will have already experienced it in another lifetime, like Ken Wapnick experienced it as Saint John of the Cross. Him and I can't remember her name now, Teresa,
Yeah.
she was a nun. They experienced it together. So he had the memory of that. So he had great compassion and understanding and wisdom around it. But it wasn't his area of expertise per se. Like Lloyd and I got a call one time. I'm just going to let you talk in a second there, Linda. But Lloyd and I got a call one time last year from a lady in Poland
Oh my
who
God.
just reached out to us and said, Stephanie and Lloyd, I feel like I'm being consumed by a vampire. Can you help me? And I knew immediately when she said it, I knew, and we both knew that she was going through the eye of the needle, because that's the way I experienced it. I felt as if there was a dark energy in my mind and all the sanity was being sucked out of my mind. That's the only way I can explain it. And that went on for like a long time. So, I'm just explaining few little things about it, but I also received so many reinforcements. Like the Holy Spirit said to me, you're in the mind of God. You're sliding into home. No, wait, no, the mind of God is here, and you're sliding into home base, which is when the ego screams the loudest.
And we were talking about this last night or this morning, I can't remember. The Course really warns us about this stage
Right.
in many places. It's not like it's a surprise, but we don't actually really understand what the Course is saying when we read it. But it's all the way along, it's telling us that we're going to go through this. In other words, there's a line that says the ego uses the body to conspire against your mind. And then there's a couple of lines, then it says the body joins in the attack. And there's another line that says, when you become most loving, that is when the ego is more likely to attack.
Right.
And there's all different kinds of innuendos in the Course that say,
The ego
okay,
shifts from suspiciousness to viciousness.
yeah, suspiciousness to
Yeah.
viciousness.
Yeah.
All those kind of things. And when we first read them, we don't have a clue what that means. But that's sort of gearing us up for when this stuff starts to, transpire. And we really have to understand at this point that we're not the body.
Right. And that we're not doing anything wrong.
We're not doing anything wrong. We're
Yeah.
actually doing everything right. That's what's bringing this on. It's all it is. It's the ego. It's the fear of annihilation.
Yeah, it's very good. The
And
fear of
because
God.
the body is a projection, and we all know this, we've all been at the Course a little while, that the body's been projected from that part of the mind, or the tiny mad idea, and it's projected out into a world of form. When that starts to come to the end, well, the maker of that particular thought system just doesn't want to give up. So it does everything to work on you, the body that it made, don't forget, to keep you grounded in the body. It's, you keep saying, oh, I'm not a body, I'm free, I'm still as God created me. And the ego is saying, well, let's just see about that. And that's when you really you do have to get strong. And I'm not kidding you have to get strong.
But
Because you
something-
will get through it.
Yeah, and there is enough strength made up. By the time you reach the end of stage number 4, there has been enough strength built up in the mind
Yeah.
to get you through stage 5. Now, you don't realize this at that time, right? We know nothing. This is part of knowing nothing. But when this stage number 5, and we like to talk about it every night. We're not talking about it all the time.
No,
We do talk to people like that are going through it, like on a one-on-one kind of a thing. But we're not out like sort of on the airwaves talking about this. We don't want to, because people don't understand it, and there's no point in really talking about it until there's an appropriate opening. And we do like to mention it from time to time because people need help and they need to know when it starts for them that they're not going crazy. Nothing has gone wrong. This is just a stage that they're going through, and and you certainly will get through it.
and we say people need help, but that's an oxymoron too, but it's the mind that needs help that's healing.
Yeah, I
That's
certainly
the thing.
needed
I mean,
help.
all healing is in
Yeah.
the mind.
Yeah,
And we do have to come to the point where we realize that we're a mind. We're not this body. I mean, Keith goes on about that all the time. I am, that's it. I am not anything else, but I am. Every time we say I am sick, I am healthy, I am guilty, has nothing to do with the I am. The I am's back there saying, I am. That's it.
yeah.
That's the Holy Spirit.
Linda?
Thank you. I was just about to say, this is a stage where I feel that I'm in. And I've been in this stage before, as I've been in all of them before. But at my curriculum, it just seems to be this one stage now I'm entering is deeper.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a much more of a letting go, and letting go of the things like judgment and that the mind's been trained for so many years. So it's letting go, and it's a letting go of the self-image, the identity here, letting go of, and part of that letting go of volunteering, of things out there. I'm just not to do anything, and not to do anything. This is unsettling.
Very good.
Absolutely.
Very
yeah.
good.
So it's a really huge letting go, and we're not each step in this direction so heavily reinforced. It would be hard indeed. And as hard as it is, there's that sense of support coming, not from form so much, but that sense that you are being supported, and it's a path of unknown. It's that willingness to have the courage to step into where it's not known and be okay with that. So that's the stage where I'm sensing this unsettling.
Yeah.
That's
So
very,
thank you for this.
and it
Yeah,
sounds
trust
like,
food.
what you're speaking of too, it sounds like it's like it's a relinquishment of looking outside of yourself
Yes.
for anything,
Yeah.
right? It's like, the relinquishment of looking outside to going within, to rise up and stop fast. The acronym for trust.
Yeah, because it's never about doing anything in the world.
Yeah.
Never.
And I
And
think
that
that's
doesn't mean you don't do things in the world, but
sure.
you end up doing them with the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
If you're prompted, to do something, you do it, but you do it with a totally different mindset.
Yes.
That's what I found anyway. And really interesting analogy here is I heard this a couple of weeks ago, is that how we have what we call invisible fence, for dogs.
Yes.
And this was a really good analogy, but the invisible fence is there, and the dog, gets up to that invisible fence, gets a little shock, and he backs off. But over a period of weeks, he works himself closer to that invisible fence, and he sort of withstands the little shocks he's getting, right? And he gets stronger and stronger because he wants to be free.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, he builds up enough resistance that he crosses that boundary line and he's free. And I thought that is freaking amazing, that little story, because that's what we're all doing. There's that that fence, that invisible fence, we can't see it, that's trying to keep us trapped here. And we have to work our way up to it, right? And we have to get, get used to those little shocks along the way
Right.
until finally we build up enough strength that we just say to hell with it, it's not going to stop any longer.
I think that code for freedom for me is very strong, so strong that is what is pulling me.
Yeah,
Right.
As you say, wanting to fly with the wings of an eagle.
Right.
yeah.
That I think that's encoded in each one of us, however that is to be experienced.
Right.
And this is the stage that's really strengthening that internal strength.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, this is where trust has to come in, right?
Yeah.
Because
Huge.
we don't know anything. At this stage, we just don't know anything. We just have to trust that we're being guided and carried through that invisible fence.
Yeah. It's all invisible
It's
Yeah.
all invisible. Yeah.
in that part. And it's all coming, it's all internal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah.
Now, guys, I think I'm going to stop the recording.
Wait a
but
minute.
we'll
We got
continue.
one more.
Yes, we got one more.
We
My
got one
goodness,
more to
I'm
read
jumping
there.
the gun here. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we'll finish the
It's
last
good.
one.
It's a good time you
Well,
got me here,
well,
let me tell you.
Yeah, we'll continue on with the meeting, but we'll just stop the recording after this. Okay, so I'll just continue with the last one. And finally, there is the period of achievement. It is here that learning is consolidated. Now, what was seen as merely shadows become solid gains, to be counted on in all emergencies, quote unquote, as well as tranquil times. Indeed, the tranquility is their result, the outcome of honest learning, consistency of thought, and full transfer. This is the stage of real peace, for here is heaven's state fully reflected. From here, the way to heaven is open and easy. In fact, it is here. Who would go anywhere if peace of mind is already complete? And who would seek to change tranquility for something more desirable? What could be more desirable than this? Wow.
And that's so important as the peace, because the Course makes it very clear that peace is the condition of heaven. So we must bring our minds back to peace. And then we're going to discover that we've never left that peace. We've always been there, because the separation truly didn't happen, but we think it did. We get caught up in that thought that the separation did happen. And the Course is telling us, no, it didn't happen. We were dreaming that it happened, and nothing in a dream is true.
Thank you. Anybody have any final words before I turn off the recording? Now, again, we're not leaving the meeting. We're going to commence with the recording. We'll keep it at an hour and a half. Does anybody have any final words of blessing you'd like to share?
Tammy.
I just want to say hi to Ardith, and we love you.
Yes, we do.
Perfect.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
She's gonna love that because she'll be listening to this recording later today.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Heidi? Oh no, Heidi has a heart. Yeah, okay. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to let go of the recording here now.